So I've done a video where I explain how I wrote chapter 1, which is the orphan and the sorceress, chapter 2, the order of magic, and even chapter 4, that's the witch's conundrum of Babricot and the breath of life. But I haven't actually done a video of how that's done a video explaining how I wrote, where to find them. You get, but the thing is that I actually did a video, but that video was like, so far of all the chapters that have been released so far, that's besides the orphan hunt, that chapter 3 was the longest by far, because I think the other chapters were just about 10 to 12,000 words. But where to find it was about 18 to 24,000, I think. Yeah, so it was the longest, and that video took me about, I think that video was about 1 hour 40 minutes or so. You get, but when I was not transferring it from my camera to my laptop, I don't know how, I don't know why, but everything lost. You get, and I did not have the energy to come and start explaining this, doing the same video, because already I'm someone who is already very camera shy. You get, it's like I'm looking at it, I'm talking to myself basically, so it feels strange. And apart from I cannot do it if people are anywhere close to me. You get, right now I'm still in, because we came to the village to for Christmas and everybody have gone back. So I'm the one, I'm alone in this house. You get, so that's why I have the confidence to be doing this thing. Not that I have confidence, I still feel strange, but apart from that camera shyness, it just feels, come to say the same thing I've said already, just strange. You get, so I thought that in this video let me just explain, since the centerpiece, no, not the centerpiece, but one of the most important things that happened in that chapter was the fight between Blessing and Barbara versus the hooded man. You get, and especially since we're about to enter an arc where there will be about 15 different fights, and most of those fights will be long. You get, and see the hooded man will come back into play. I decided to explain that fight again. You get, in preparation of this arc that will be full of fighting. So the first thing about that fight in chapter 2 was that originally, when I was planning the arc, where to find them, it was originally just supposed to be about Blessing and Barbara going to help a zookeeper find his animals that have been lost. Because my plan for how the animals got lost is that there are supposed to be some mere men who are looking, they wanted to steal the dragon so that they can, because they are like freedom fighters, so that they can is it dethrone or something the government. You get, so that's why they wanted to steal a dragon, and what they did now caused many of the animals to run like a stampede or something and run away. So the zookeeper has to find those animals before warlords come and arrest him. So Barbara and Blessing were supposed to help him, and that's just them helping him. It's just like that thing in Avatar where Aang helped that zookeeper find place for his animal. That it's also going to be a soft chapter where just lovely, like spectacle, where we'll see dragon, we'll see this megalodon, that's all these ancient fantastical creatures. You get, but I was not writing it, it was very difficult for me to do that whole plot line of those mere men who want to steal a dragon, because first of all, the person I wanted to use, I was supposed to introduce him in Afterward. You get, and I did not want to use him, and I did not want to use anyone else, so I just decided to scratch that whole plot line. So it was just supposed to be them coming to just talk to the zookeeper. We'll tell them that his animals are missing, so they'll go and find it. When I now came to write that scene, it was supposed to be to appear in the sector. They'll now walk from through the streets to get to where the zookeeper is. For some reason, they were having a conversation during that while they were walking. When I now got to it, for some reason, and it just came to my mind that why don't I just add tension by making it that they meet some hooded people, figures torturing that zookeeper. You get, so when they saw it, they obviously they are going to fight those people. My plan was just, okay, let's go just shoot a few spells. Those people will shoot a few spells back, then they'll disappear, and that was it. You get. Well, it's now when I was now planning this my whole serialization idea, to get some readers. Maybe if I serialize for a period of time before I publish, I might get some readers who will read my book when I publish it. I said, okay, let me flesh out this fight. That's why I came, okay, these two hooded figures, instead of them to be two hooded. And it was also around that period that I read this thing. I was rereading Naruto. And obviously the first arc in Naruto is, what's the name? What's this thing? Is the Land of Waves arc. So there was Zabuza and Haku, you get, a man and a child. So I said that, okay, I'm also going to make this one, instead of two men, it's going to be a man and a little girl, you get. And also around that time, I think I was also planning the whole book two and how Obscura was to come into the whole design. And I said, okay, this and up. Because remember, I wanted to take some chapters and add to some chapters from book two and add to chapter one, to book one, sorry. So that book two, because book two is too long. The things I will be I haven't started writing, but the things, because obviously I used to plot everything out complete, and the things that are going to be in book two are too long. You get, so I'm taking, so my whole introducing, I was able to introduce the Obscurials in book two, and I decided to take this opportunity to introduce the Obscurials as well as the Hooded Men, as well as some other organizations. You get, introduce them in this book one. So I now saw it as my opportunity. And I said, okay, they are going to fight this Hooded Man now. You get. So first, the fight started was with Barbara and Blessing versus this man and this man. But I first thought about it. I said, okay, Barbara doesn't have magic. You get, so she can't really participate. And if this little girl has magic, that means Barbara can't fight her since the girl has magic. So I now decided that okay, I'll find a way to just remove the girl from the equation. So it's just going to be the wounded man. That's why I'm now made at the beginning of the fight, Blessing knocked the girl out. He was now only the wounded man, right? I'm now like, okay, since it's now Barbara and Blessing are remaining versus the wounded man, you get. I'm now like wondering, Barbara doesn't have magic. So she can't actually fight in this fight. She can't participate in this fight. Yet it's going to just Blessing versus the dead man. But then Barocot is the main character. How will the main character not participate in the first important fight that's happening in this book? When you are available, you are presently there, you get. So I'm like, how will I make it work? How will I make it work? She doesn't have magic. How is she going to fight someone who is very powerful that you can't fight without magic? Yeah, this kind of thing. That's when I now, obviously I've just finished reading this and I say, okay, I'm going to use what Kishimoto did as my blueprint, since he already solved this problem I have. He already found the solution to the problem. And what did Kishimoto do in that land of waves? What he did was, Zabuza was very powerful. Zabuza was as powerful as Kakashi, and they already showed us how much more powerful Kakashi is than Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura in the Bell arc or the Bell mission. This thing we already know, and so now Zabuza is fighting on equal footing, which means them they can't even do anything to Zabuza. They just have to sit back and let Kakashi take care of business. And the thing was, Zabuza now beat Kakashi. He now imprisoned Kakashi in the water bubble. But Kishimoto did it in the way where, as he imprisoned Kakashi, he also has to keep holding Kakashi in the water bubble. You get, he has to keep holding Kakashi so Kakashi can't escape. Which means, in a way, he's now nerfed. He's now immobilized. So he now has to create clones to go and fight Naruto and Sasuke. And the clones aren't anywhere as powerful as him. I think someone they said it was like 2% his power or something. You get, so obviously that's like this thing. He fight Kakashi small. He beats Kakashi, imprisons Kakashi, but he has to be there keeping Kakashi in prison. So he will create a clone to fight Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke mission is now to find a way, because those clones aren't anywhere as powerful as Zabuza. So they have to find a way to get past the clones and to get, just not to beat Zabuza or anything, just to get Zabuza to release Kakashi, so Kakashi cannot continue the fight. So that was my blueprint, right? They fight the hooded. Blessing will fight the hooded man first. The hooded man will imprison her. Then Barbara will now find a way to set Blessing free. Then to set Blessing free, then Blessing will now continue the fight. So that was my thing. That was even what I now use to, like, you also have to decide which powers everybody has. That's why I say, okay, the hooded man ability will now be water and ice. You get to both, because I think Haku's ability size. That's why I gave him ice. The water was Zabuza's ability. Like I said, the same way Zabuza used water to imprison Kakashi, that was how the hooded man was going to use water to imprison Blessing. So that's how they fight. When for the Blessing and hooded man's part of the fight, that's the first section of the fight. That one was, I got to the idea of how the fight was going to go from Gara versus this guy Kimimaru in Sasuke Retriever Act. When Gara came to save Rock Lee from Kimimaru. And in the way the fight went is that Gara just standing where he's standing, and all his sand hands and sand whips are going, and Kimimaru is dodging all of them, and while Kimimaru is also finding a way to be shooting Bones at Gara, because Bones is his power, you get. So that was the same thing I did. The wooden man is using, he has a water bottle. So he's using water to try to grab Blessing and all that. And Blessing is dodging while also shooting spells at him, and the water is blocking. So eventually she finds a way to destroy, because obviously if you're going to beat a water user, you have to destroy their source of water. And that was her plan. So she finds a way to outmaneuver his water whips and destroy the source of water. But she now also overlooked that all that water that has now poured on the floor, she thought she has won us, but she did overlook that all that water that has poured on the floor is still available. And that's what the hooded man now used to imprison her in that water cocoon, you get. So that was the first part of that fight was over. I done my part. So now it was now the part of Barbara coming to help. And that part was actually very, very difficult because again, Barbara doesn't have magic. How am I going to solve the issue? How is she going to? Because why the wounded man is this thing is, what's the name? Is also tied down. You get, it's still like, how am I going to get Barbara to get him to release his hand? You get. And the first thing first is, after Zabuza locked Kakashi, he summoned clones to God. But I could not make the Udema also summon clones because it's going to be like just straight up copying at that point, you get. And that's when both for Barbara Okot to counter him and him having powers that she can counter. You can't just give him powers that Barbara can't counter at all, you get. And that's why I got to the idea of this thing, of how to do the whole thing from this thing. Shikamaru versus that Teruya girl, they are fighting also that same Sasuke Retriever arc. And that's how that fight went, is that the girl summoned demons and she was not controlling the demons to fight Shikamaru, you get. And Shikamaru now used his shadow and his smartness to outsmart her and take control of the demon and get her to summon the demons, you get. So my own idea was that, okay, this hooded man is going to create water construct out of the water that is already on the ground, you get. And I said that originally I wanted to have two, one for long range, one for short range, then one in the sky. But I decided that, okay, if I'm going to have a sky creature, it's going to be too much for Barra to handle, you get. So I said, okay, there will only be two, one for long range and one for short range. Then the one for long range, I got the idea from this guy, Zeke. That's the Beast Titan in Attack on Titan. Yeah, that time where he will carry a boulder, crush it, then stone. So I had said that, okay, this man, one of the constructs from what I will make is a gorilla. That's the Gigantopithecus. I saw somewhere that is one of the ancient gorillas that are very massive, you get. That's taking the inspiration from the Beast Titan. And what the gorilla will be doing is going to be grabbing all the ice that's on the ground and using it to stone Barbara. Then I now decided the next creature we'll create for close range will be a polar bear. You get. So, and my idea for this was, okay, Barbara Colt can now, I think I did something where she's going to steal. My idea when I was creating these animals made out of what was that Barbara is going to find a way to steal the zookeeper's briefcase. Then she will take out a fire creature from whether a phoenix or a dragon from the briefcase, easy to destroy the animals, you get. That's why I think when he locked up Blessing when he locked up Blessing, immediately Barbara ran out of this thing to like save Blessing. He now kicked her away. But actually, she didn't run out to like just like a fool or just shouting let her go or anything. She actually ran out to take the briefcase, but making him think that maybe she was just running out to save Blessing or something. So when he kicked her away, she actually had that briefcase on her, you get. But when she was now searching inside the briefcase, I now got the idea that I was writing this and I saying no, this is going to be too easy if you just have a dragon. If she just gets a dragon or fire this thing from this thing to destroy these animals, you get, it's going to be too easy. It's not going to be satisfying. So I now started thinking. I was thinking for a few weeks. Because when I write all this, it's not actually easy to write. It used to take me a long time to think and to solve, because there used to be like puzzles I have to solve too. So I thought for a few weeks. You get. I think one time I was thinking and I decided that, okay, it's going to be nice if she can find a way to use the man's power against him. You get. And since his power is water and ice, I'm not like, you need fire to destroy water, but I want her to use water to do this stuff. And I started just looking for ways. For some reason, my mind just started going like, is there a way to to create fire out of ice or out of water. And I just went and browsed it on YouTube just to browse it. I didn't think it was real. But as I just browsed it, how to create fire from ice, for some reason I just saw a video. It was a YouTube short of a girl. They say this is how to create fire from ice. You get all first. I saw a random video on YouTube where in the video they were teaching something like how in frozen lakes there's all these clumps of white you see. And if in the video the man like stabbed the lake, and when he stabbed the lake, something like steam started coming out. He now said that okay, this thing that coming out is methane gas and it is actually flammable. That's he on lighter and showed that okay, the thing was actually flammable. You get. So I now say okay, I'm going to have this thing that's as a source of fire. Now what will remain is for Barbara to be able to light up this source of fire. Yeah, that's this methane gas bubble. So I now went back earlier in Blessing Fight to foreshadow it, and I see there's a time that the hooded man threw a water whip at his Blessing, and she dodged, and as he landed on the ground, he froze over. And I'll describe that there was a white clump in the middle of this ice that froze over on the ground. You get, just to foreshadow this whole methane gas stuff. Then for how to set fire was when I think originally I thought I wanted to go back to when they were still at home before they came on this mission. I say for some reason let me have Barbara take a lighter with her or something. I say it's still going to be like I'm cheating. I say that's why I now started going with all this. I need to find a way for her to use water to create this fire. I now browse on YouTube. That's why I now saw a video of a girl saying this is how you create water with what's the name? This is how you create fire with water. The girl now got ice. She carved the ice. She now made the ice like all this looking glass. She now position it in a way through, so sunlight will now filter through that ice ball. Will now be very very precise. You get. Will now light on dry grass. You now set the grass on fire. You understand? And that's why I now got my idea. Okay, Barbara will find a way to outmaneuver the creatures and get them to a particular place where sunlight will now filter from that creature. Yes, get them to a place where sunlight filter from those the polar bear. You know they are made of ice and water. So if sunlight can filter from them and hit the particular spot in a distance where she will set dry grass, it's now going to set the fire. And that's where I got the whole idea from. So she now had maneuvered the whole distance and set the fire. Then obviously when the whole thing, you know, normally in real life it's supposed to be just small gas coming out, then fire is just going to be. But since this is fiction, I have shares poetic license, you guys used to call it. So I decided to make it like a whole explosion. So obviously from the explosion, since she's also caught up in the explosion, I say okay, at the last point she's going to pull out a moment from the briefcase, the zookeeper's briefcase, and that is that moment that will protect her. Also pull out the moment for another reason. So it's when she now started riding on the moment. The hooded man was now like shooting her water. But since she riding the moment just kept on drinking the water with his trunk. So at the last moment, the hooded man now had to dodge, which means freeing Blessing in the process. So in my Blessing fight will now start again. Then my original plan was supposed to be that Blessing is supposed to be the one who will defeat him. As she has been released, she was supposed to now defeat him. But when they were not doing that deal, she was the one who was supposed to win that beam struggle they were having of fire versus ice. She was the one who was supposed to win the struggle. But that's when I started thinking of how I wanted to end the entire chapter. And I was taking inspiration from Land of Waves Arcs to write this whole chapter you get. So that's, if you know Land of Waves, you know that's when Naruto did his first Talk No Jutsu, and Zabuza was like, what's the name? Zabuza was like, you talk too much. Well, it was called deeper than any blade. So yeah, okay, I want that kind of moment for my this thing. So that's why I now started thinking about the hooded man and his relationship with that girl, Ifunanya. Like if you read the entire chapter, you know what I'm talking about, you get. So what I did, I started asking my guys like is it better to love someone for yourself or for your own sake, or is it better to love someone for their sake? You get kind of like the theme of this book, like selfish love versus this kind of love. And where I'm like, whatever my guys answer, I'll be like one of my guys will tell me that it's better to love someone for your own sake, and I'll be like, well, isn't that selfish? And if love is selfish, is it love? And someone will tell me it's better to love someone else for their own sake, and I'll be like, but if you love someone else for their own sake, not for yourself, Not because it doesn't mean that like it's pity, that kind of thing. I was just kind of then my whole this thing in this arc was that at the end of the arc, because in the whole chapter, Ifunanya, that girl, she's someone who relates more with Barbara because Barbara understands what she's been through. Barbara have somehow been through the same thing. That's Barbara have both been through what Ifunanya had been through, and she's been through what the hooded man had been through. Because when Barbara was little, after the whole exorcism thing they did to her, she now kind of like stopped letting herself love people because the more you love, the more you are likely to be hurt. That kind of thing. So she understands where both Ifunanya and the hooded man is coming from. That's why Ifunanya relates to her. But at the same time, I'm someone who believes that just because you relate to someone doesn't mean it's that person you should always listen to, and you should block out everyone else. Because sometimes things you can learn that can help you your situation are things you will learn from people who don't understand your situation. You get that kind of thing. That's why I decided that okay, it's going to be blessing. Who is that statement I wanted to like say that you can learn things that will help your situation from people who don't understand your situation or who have never been in your situation. And that's why I think that it is blessing who is going to do the talk no gist on the hooded man. You get. Well, that's why I now decided that okay, it's going to be blessing who will defeat him in this fight, in this beam struggle. But now I'm not thinking more of it. I'm not like, yeah, so I acknowledge this my this. What I want to say is that you don't have to, you should also listen to people who don't understand your situation or who have never been in your shoes, because you can learn things that help you escape your shoes or be more comfortable in your shoes from those kind of people. I'm not like, but still I can't escape from the fact that a lot of the time people still used to people are still more likely to feel connected and listening to the people who have been in their shoes. You get. So that's why at the end when Blessing was trying to talk to the hooded man, he wasn't listening to her. Even all the shout she was shouting, he wasn't listening to her. It wasn't until Barbara, who understands him and feels his pain, started shouting at Blessing. You get. And it's now kind of like doing what the hooded man wants to do, but he can't do it kind of because he has the mission. It's like she's kind of like shouting at, and it's kind of like tells the hooded man that okay, Barbara understands what I'm going through. You get. And it's that kind of this thing that say, okay, this other girl understands what I'm going through and what I've been through and why I'm doing the things I'm doing. You understand? And that's what allows him to listen to what Blessing has to say. You get. And that's why in this fight, I decided that okay, instead of me to make it that Blessing won, I'm going to make it that okay, the hooded man is winning. Then Barbara now shoots water at the hooded man through the Momot who has been absorbing water from the hooded man earlier. She shoot that water at the hooded man to stun him. Then that's when Blessing can now take over. Yet and that's why the same way in the ending, I mean that Blessing was trying to get through to the hooded man, but he wasn't listening. He was walking the way. It wasn't until Barbara now gave her own input that the hooded man now stopped to listen. You understand? So that's how the fight. And I think I got inspiration from concerning fights. The 3 fights I used as my blueprint was Kakashi, Naruto, Sasuke versus Zabuza, Gara versus Kimimaru, Shikamaru, and this thing versus Teiya. Those are the 3 different fights I used. I also got inspiration from Attack on Titan. That's the whole Zeke part. For the teams I got from Land of Waves again, you get. So that's how I wrote this fight. I think there are many more things, but I've forgotten most of them. I don't have it. I'm just all this I'm doing it from my head. That's why I'm stuttering many times, and at the same time I'm still camera shy. So anyway, if you haven't read my record and the Breath of Life, you can go and visit my website to read it. So far we have completed 4 different chapters: the Orphan and the Sorceress, the Hall of Magic, Where to Find Them, and this thing, the Witch's Conundrum. And right now we're in chapter 5, the Orphan Hunt. We're going to have 12 chapters, but right now we're in chapter 5, so it's still we still have a long way to go. So please like this video, comment, leave your comments, share. If you read Bible Call, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like so I can improve, and thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.